So this event is it's the beginning of the Interaction Project. Our Interaction Project is an online project in conjunction with Galway 2020. It began long before the pandemic, and yet is very appropriate to the time we currently find ourselves in. It involves 6 artists who will be presenting live work in progress performances and workshops and talks for 2 weeks, starting on the 18th of May. And you'll be able to find all of that information on interactiongalway.com. That work is all about digital technology in the making and presenting of theatre. So it's going to be really interesting 2 weeks, and I'm really looking forward to it. And I'd like to take this opportunity, as it is one of the few live and public opportunities I will have, to thank Jane Hanbury for all of her work on that, and also to thank the team, the GTF team of Aoife Noon, our general manager, and the board, who have all been very supportive. As many of you know, today should have been the finale of the festival, and what a finale we would have been with the sunshine. I'm imagining pints outside Noctons as a closing event, and it would have been quite an evening to close it all off. So obviously we are very sad about that, and I also offer commiserations to all of those events and festivals who had to cancel in the recent weeks. It is by no means easy, although it is very necessary and important at the moment. The purpose of this talk is to look at what happens next. So in 6 or 8 or 10 months, what will the impact of the pandemic be on how we make and present work? I don't expect that we'll necessarily come up with any answers, but I think that it's important to get the conversation rolling, and no doubt it'll continue to evolve as situations change. From the festival's perspective, we obviously have concerns about the future in terms of if funding budgets from the department are going to be cut, what that means in terms of how we can present work and how much we can present. We also have concerns around social distancing in our venues and what that means for ticket sales, and also what it means for the audience experience and for the performers experience, because festivals by their very nature are experiential. I think we have a lot of work to do in terms of maintaining and minding and supporting our industry. The festival's ethos is to support independent theatre makers and performers in Galway and the west of Ireland, in presenting high quality work to our audiences. And our independent artists and our art workers are freelance, and they are by their very nature some of the most precarious workers in the country, even before this pandemic. And so that precarity is only going to get more profound. And I very strongly believe that the onus is on the department, on the Arts Council, and on funded organisations to support independent freelance artists and art workers who are now somewhat adrift. I do think that there will be, in the long run, a positive outcome, which is the nature of the arts is collaborative. We are collaborative in what we do every day. And I think what will come out of this is a deeper and stronger collaborative nature between the artists, the art workers, the arts organisations, the festivals, the local businesses who are suffering so much and who support us so incredibly year round. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think we all have the imagination and the determination to still be here this time next year and on into the future. I'm not going to keep talking because we have some spectacular speakers. I'm delighted that they've been able to join us. I'm going to introduce them all now and then call on them each in turn to speak. So we're going to start with Roisin, who is the chair of Theatre 57. Theatre 57 being a collective of artists, of independent artists in Galway, who are involved in advocacy for sustainable careers, which is very important. Roisin is also a theatre maker and has a long-standing relationship with Galway Theatre Festival, so I'm really glad that she is joining us. We're going to follow Roisin with Marianne Marianne Kennedy, who is a lecturer and theatre manager in NUIG Drama, Theatre and Performance Studies Department in the O'Donoghue Centre. Marianne is also a member of the Gary and Giria Performance Collective, who were with us in GTF last year, 2019. Then we'll have Dara McGee, who's the artistic director of Áras Éanna, and I think it's really important to have a perspective from somebody who's not based in the city, and who will have very specific and particular challenges and opportunities based on the venue and the location of Áras Éanna and the Aran Islands. And last but by no means least, we have Fergal McGrath from the Town Hall Theatre. Fergal is a very strong supporter of the arts in Galway, and I'm really delighted that he has joined us. I'm looking forward to a great conversation, and as I said, please feel free to join in the conversation via the chat, and if you do want to say anything, drop a little message into the chat and I will call on you when our speakers have finished. But for now, I'm going to hand over to Roisin. You're muted there, Roisin, if you wouldn't mind unmuting yourself. Thank you.
Rookie error. Can you hear me okay? Because I'm using the headphones because the washing machine's on. Domestic banality. Okay, thanks a million. Thanks for having me today. I suppose once I started thinking about this, I realized there's actually quite a lot to talk about. Goes without saying that we're in a period of a great unknown, and all we can go on is what has happened in the last 7 or 8 weeks, and also what we do know from the latest government announcement. So I suppose August the 10th is one thing that we do know, that venues are going to reopen, and that they might open prior to that as well as a workspace. But we still don't know, of course, what is going to be the nature of audiences and the return to theatre as we know it. And there's a lot in limbo for artists at the moment as well. So the City Arts Awards can't currently be assessed because of the City Council's rule that that decisions need to be made in the chamber. So that's quite an ineffective rule that is holding things up for artists locally. Arts Council funding keeps getting pulled left, right and centre, as we know, including after deadlines, as happened this week. And because we don't know what the government formation is going to be, we don't know what the long-term commitments are, which you referred to there, Sorcha. And of course, then, you know, the second wave, when will we have a vaccine, all of that stuff. And so what I've noticed in the conversations is there can be a tendency for people to catastrophize and to be quite negative and to say things like theatre won't recover, theatre is no longer relevant, we need to move everything online, we need to change careers. And while that's completely understandable, I agree with what you said, that there is a silver lining and good things are already happening. So for one thing, there's great organisation happening within the sector. We're seeing that nationally, we're seeing that internationally. There's a huge coming together. And it's probably the first time that this is happening on at that scale, where it's not just the gatekeepers that are making decisions and feeding up to policy, but we as arts workers, as you said again, as freelancers, but also people working within venues and salaried professionals across the board, company managers, stage managers, artists, designers, we're all having these conversations and coming together. And I think that's going to give us a much more realistic and a much more coherent picture of the sector that hopefully will inform real change. And I suppose around those conversations, we're also reflecting on, you know, the place of theatre, on our own individual practice, but also what will theatre be? Will it be something that is more intimate? Will we have smaller audiences? Will we be looking for more offsite and more outdoor? And of course, on a local level, like we have a great wealth, we have a great tradition to draw on in terms of outdoor theatre with Mockness, Gombeans, Thurles, and of course our busking community. So that's something that here in Galway we can really take advantage of. And I think as well that, like, if audiences are smaller, which I think is quite likely even in the short to medium term, we have a responsibility to make sure that accessibility is still a priority and that theatre doesn't become more elite than it often can be. And that's a responsibility for events and venues, of course, as well as artists. But within that, I suppose new dynamic of smaller audiences or of less of the fourth wall and the cross arch, there's the potential for new relationships with audiences and the potential for a different kind of audience member. Are we going to get a more committed audience member? What's that going to do for us as artists? Is that going to make us more experimental? How do we respond to that creatively? So there's a lot of unknown in that I think is actually quite exciting. But of course, one of the biggest opportunities is that a lot of people are speaking about at the moment is venues, and when these venues reopen, presumably without audiences or certainly without the same audiences and without touring, because the touring grant has been pulled and also with restrictions, you know, this is the perfect opportunity for artists to go into those venues, to give the venue life, to give it purpose. And also when venues are reimagining, you know, how will work happen? Where will audiences be? How do we reimagine the auditoria? Artists should be part of that conversation because they can respond and go, well, I could do a piece here in a stairwell, or I could do a piece on the other side of this glass, or whatever it might be. And I think that's a great opportunity to level that playing field between artists and venues and RFOs, because we're all now part of a very different ecosystem. And Theatre 57 is in the process of approaching all of the venues in Galway to invite them to have these conversations and to open their doors. And I think that we'd be encouraging venues to be open and equitable. So it's not about just taking in the same people that you've had before, the relationships that work, but look at emerging artists, graduates from NUIG, artists that maybe are overlooked, artists that are new to Galway. We need to look at the ecosystem, as I said, and this is a chance to balance that. And finally, and because I know it's only supposed to be 5 minutes, but I think festivals and events, I think there's a huge opportunity here where festivals and events are now going to have to look closer to home because of travel restrictions, and they're going to have to really reevaluate how they look at and invest in local artists. And this could be an absolute game changer, particularly if bigger organisations like Galway International Arts Festival and Galway 2020 put even more focus on these elements of their programme. So I suppose ultimately, even though things are really bad and really scary, I think there's an opportunity here for artists to be empowered and for us to look at what is a very broken system that we have been propping up, and to look at if this could be a paradigm shift where we redress the balance.
Great, thank you very much, Roisin. Lots to think about there. I'm going to call now on Marianne for her contribution, please.
Hi everybody, and people were saying fair play to you for the background. I did try to do it digitally, and I just couldn't, so I went outside. And that's where my Wi-Fi works. We have a collapsible caravan which has become our office over recent times, which some of you have seen the 70s velour inside of. So yeah, it's all happening out here in Spittle. But I suppose I'm speaking here today as somebody who has kind of a foot in two camps, in that I'm here in the rural area that is Spittle, in a Gaeltacht speaking area, which is one of our major differential points here in Galway. But I'm also working. I'm a lucky person who is currently working, though, who will send or allow their child to study drama in future years remains up for debate. But currently, anyway, and what we as Roisin says, it is a time for being resilient. It is a time for being positive. We can look at the post-COVID, but we must also acknowledge the pre-COVID. We must also acknowledge that artists were priced out of living in Galway, that people were moving out of Galway in their droves, that it was, yes, it's an artist-led city in that it brings a huge amount of people, the arts and culture bring a huge amount of people to Galway, but it wasn't artist-friendly. It wasn't artist-friendly for independent artists. People were really struggling on the ground, and graduates of NUI Galway were struggling, and we in the O'Donoghue Centre, I suppose, we feel we have a real obligation to people who are independent, who are early career, who are trying to get shows up on their feet. We are also, I suppose, in a different position to many of the venues in that we don't have to depend at the moment on bums on seats, though that may or may not change. It certainly, if it changes, we have a 16-seater theatre at the moment with the current 2-metre restrictions, which Mike O'Halloran worked out for us. But I suppose we're based in the city, and reflecting, I suppose, on what theatre will be. We look at companies like Phoebe, who have just announced that they are going to do a drive-in drama called Fiach, which will happen in August, and that's cast, and they're starting working on that. There's like fabulous things happening all around the city. People are working, people are not, and people are. The likes of Little John Nee has created a whole other theatrical space online, and then there are others who are writing for the likes of the Abbey Dear Ireland postcards, which is interesting that it takes a literary form, asks us to write postcards. But I suppose for the future, what I would hope is that, as Roisin says, that whatever we have an opportunity here, there is a pause on the city arts strategy. The county arts strategy is currently being written. These are two very important documents for the city of Galway. The collaboration, I suppose, needs to happen not only between artists and art workers, but also those who hold the purse strings really need to understand better what, and I'm not talking about, I'm looking at James Harold there fixing his camera, but I'm not looking at the arts officers who know intimately what the work of artists and art workers is on the ground, but those who make the decisions in the chamber rooms, those who enact the policy and decide where the money ultimately will go in terms of priorities. We need to make sure that they really do understand, and as a collective voice, independent, funded or regularly funded, it actually is so important that the voices are collective, that they are heard, and that Theatre 57 is doing great work, but also the venues, as Roisin was saying, have a responsibility to make sure that we do ensure that those who need to develop work, who need to get work, are properly supported in whatever way we can. And no gesture or nothing is too small at the moment. One foot in front of the other is the only way. But it's a very hard time for people to be creative when they don't know, when their mortgages are on hold. And I shout out to the moms out there, the mothers, artists, makers. I am currently trying to correct exams of drama and theatre studies students, and having in the lucky position that I have a collapsible caravan. But I don't know how people are being creative in some circumstances at the moment, and venues may be able to reopen, but childcare doesn't. And you know, those who work in box office that are parents are now suddenly faced with major dilemmas. So I think what we need is like to really engage, and now is a great time to engage with the strategies of both city and county, to really look at our unique selling points and knit them together. The fact that we are in a bilingual city is of note, is something that artists from Galway carry with them all the time. The fact that we have, I see Trad Picnic, which is an outdoor festival already, that has models built up for doing that in Irish weather. The fact that we reimagine, yes, but we also build on the strengths of what we have. You know, we look to the future with hope, with dochas. The precarity of where we are is not acceptable. It wasn't acceptable pre-COVID, it's still not acceptable post-COVID. So what will affect the change in that conversation? And that's where I would love to hear other people's opinions as to what we can do. And looking as well that the urban and the rural meet, and that the divide between funded and non-funded, that the conversations knit together, and how those who are independent can bring that freedom and creativity into an organization that perhaps may need an injection. and vice versa. So there's lots of benefits, and there's lots of things that can happen. It's a petrifying time, and as Roisin said, like the Arts Council have cancelled oftentimes after people have put days, weeks, months getting their letter support. Funds have been cancelled left, right and centre. We look forward to the City Arts Awards being announced, and we hope that that will be prioritised, because that's crucial to even taking a small step forward for people to know. But we also need to think about the creative response to the trauma that is this, and that it's not over. And so we may all think the 10th of August, you know, scrums can happen again in rugby, I guess, and we can all sit beside. But the intimacy that is the theatre space, that sitting beside someone you don't know, having a conversation with somebody you don't know as an audience member, we need, I suppose, for the future, we need audience-led, artist-led, value-led theatre. And whatever they don't have to be my value, what I think is good as a work of art or a piece of theatre is not what the person sitting beside me will think. And we need to acknowledge the many voices in the room, and we also need to acknowledge the conversations with those who hold the purse strings and inform policy, so that the policies that are being written at the moment, the strategies that are being written at the moment, will actually affect some change.
That's great. Thank you very much, Marianne. I'm struck there by you saying particularly the voices of those who are in the room, but I think we also need to recognise the voices of those who aren't in the room at all. And there are many artists and art workers and incredibly talented people who don't get a look in the door, whether it be for accessibility reasons or language reasons or financial reasons, and many, many more reasons. And as both yourself and Roisin have been saying, there's a chance to redraft the structures that we create in. And I think bringing those people into the room is a very important part of all of that.
Yeah, and I just on that, I mean, for example, how many organisations in Galway, in a bilingual city, have an Irish language policy? I mean, even that would be a very interesting question to see, never mind all the other policies that we're going to have to put in place. But what are the things, the bedrock that we need to actually fundamentally enhance, and where are the things that where are the strengths needed already to keep us sustainable, to keep us going?
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, Marianne. I'm now going to call on Dara from Áras Éanna. If you could unmute yourself, please, Dara. Thank you very much. Are you there, Dara? Have we lost you? Just trying to see where Dara is. Okay, well, we might move on to
Sorcha, you should be able to unmute him if you're the host.
I can't. I have, but I can't find him. Oh, there. Yeah, Dara, can you hear me?
Yeah, hello, can you hear me?
You can, there, perfect, great.
Great, okay. Gee, for fad new, agus mila buchas as up on Curishaw Lourch live in you. Thanks very much for asking me to speak today. As you said earlier, I'm in a different position because I'm running an art centre out on Inisheer, the smallest of the Aran Islands. And we've all been hit with cancellations and change in our lifestyle and change everything, no more so than ourselves. We've had to cancel our Kraken Bowron Festival, the Drop Everything Festival. We did Theatre Forum Conference to happen, along with our main summer programme of musical concerts, drama, comedy, and of course our artist in resident. So what we have done at the moment, like a lot of other people, is we are doing some concerts online. We're doing an online programme called Áras Éanna Bio once a week. We're paying the artists. We've taken that conscious decision to pay the artists, and we don't have a huge budget, but what we're doing is we're paying a flat rate no matter how famous you are or whether you're an emerging artist. And the reaction that I'm getting from the artists themselves is fantastic, to be given an opportunity to get a paid gig. And it's not just music we're doing puppetry, a bit of drama, live art. I'm trying to keep it as diverse as I can and try and find artists to do a show on that. One of our main things on Inisheer, because of its beautiful location, is our artist in residence. And at present, the artist in residence is closed down, and we've made available our the residency to the island if it is needed for a COVID isolation unit. And luckily that hasn't happened so far. But we are hoping to get the artist in residence up and running again. And what we were doing, we have partnerships with the Galway City Council Arts Office and the Galway County Council Arts Office, the Royal Hibernian Association and ISACs. So with the first three there, what we are hoping to do is to continue once August 10th comes and we reopen, to continue with their artist residency. But before that, if we cannot get anybody in there, we're still going to offer a residency in absentia with an artist assistant from the island. So we're going to try and link up somebody with the island. We're going to try and involve the community. It could be a photographer from the island. There's very talented people on the island, and it would be, and we will pay that person. It might be 10 hours, 15 hours for the month that they're doing their residency. And we're going to try and those up where they can help in research, help go out for a walk with their FaceTime on their phone or whatever it may be. And it's something new. We're trying it because there's a lot of bad things happening. Every place is closed down. It's very negative. My own feeling is that we have to be positive. So what can we do for the here and now? I know we're all planning for the future. Marianne mentioned the excellent idea Phoebe has of doing Fiach, their drive-in theatre in August. So I remember the 80s. I was brought up in the theatre world in the 80s. I started in the Taibhirc when I was 12 as an usher or something, and I spent most of my life as a fine artist, scenic painter, and also as a crew member for Druid Taibhirc and travelling theatres. And I've worked with a lot of theatre companies, including the wonderful Irish language theatre company Na Fánacha that was in the late 80s and early 90s. So theatre is my background, although I'm not as involved hands-on in theatre anymore. I think there are a lot of problems there, but we just have to be very inventive and positive about this. I remember, as I said, in the 80s, we were in a recession in the 80s, and the people that made Galway what it is and made companies want to come to Galway was the arts community. They were so vibrant and alive in tough times, and we were a very resilient bunch, and it is very, very tough, and we need to do that again, and we are doing that again. I feel as well that because Áras is going to be closed down and we have a lot of extra space, and I spoke to the Arts have some more artisan residencies, because now is a time that I think is great for development, whether it's playwrights, whether it's actors, whether it's painters, sculptors, whatever, textile workers, whatever. So we have 3 or 4 spare rooms there, and if we look at this problem, I'm trying to think, right, this should be the start of the boom time on the islands for tourism. So there's all these houses that are rented out during, and apartments that are rented out during the summer months lying idle. So here's a chance to help islanders with a bit of business. They're keeping their social distancing, they're being creative, and they're planning. So it's a very tough position we're all in at the moment. My message is, and the way I'm trying to think, is in the here and now, and be positive, and at the same time planning for the future as we know what's happening and when we can reopen and how we can reopen. So Shinamage will agam said Gurmila Mahagi.
Gurmargat Dara, that was great. And I think there's a good bit of response to both the development, the idea of this being a time for development as opposed to production, and also the residency and keeping that going and connecting the residency and the community so directly is a really brilliant idea. I'm now going to call on our last speaker, Fergal McGrath, to give his contribution.
Hi all, can you hear me okay? Thanks to Sorcha and Aoife and the gang for inviting me to participate in this. Hugely interesting conversation so far, so thanks a million for that. Basically, I suppose in the space of 5 minutes, I mean, just to try and structure it, I might touch on three things. The first two, perhaps not positive or uplifting, but we'll finish off with some of the positivity and energy that I've been hearing the last few minutes from the others. I suppose the first thing is to look at like where we're at now, and very quickly overnight, you know, our industry has been like flattened. So we in the town hall, for example, have spent the last 6-8 weeks cancelling, rescheduling, refunding. So it's been a very disheartening experience for all of us, for our audiences, for our performers, and also for our staff. So it's been a very difficult time for many people. This second quarter would have been the busiest in the history of the town hall, and that's a fact. That's actual truth. April, May, June would have been jammed, all three spaces. Huge amount of Galway work within that, like absolutely dominant in the programme. So that's all evaporated. 2020 opportunities and perhaps the possibility of a legacy is evaporating. And we're, I suppose, clutching at straws in response to the initial shock of what's hit us. So that's where we're at now. Secondly, and moving towards positivity, we're not there yet. What next in terms of what next for theatre in the general term, and only then can we come back to what's next for Galway theatre in a more specific term. I mean, I'm constantly researching and reading. I'm part of several groups who are trying to, I suppose, find a way out of this, and we're coming up against the one-liners like, you know, Stephen Fry saying can't see theatres opening for live performances before next year. Cameron McIntosh saying no vaccine, no theatre. Extreme worst case scenarios like that. And doing the sums of Pete, we look at using the measuring tape and using AutoCAD. We can get 10% of our audiences in at the moment if there's 2 metre distancing. We can double that to 20% if the figure drops to 1 metre, which is actually the WHO figure. And we can get to 40% if we work off 1 metre, but we sell in groups of 4. But as Roisin alluded to there earlier, we got to be very careful that anything we or anyone else does is not elitist or discriminatory. But there's no one in the industry at 40% who can survive in terms of existing levels of support, subsidy or whatever. The town hall, we take 85% of our income from tickets and bar sales. So it's a huge issue if on the 10th of August we're still at 2 metres. So I suppose that's the negativity. Moving now towards maybe what's next and the opportunities and the way to get out. I mean, there's 2 issues that we are looking at. One is the lockdown, basically, which sees us 10th of August being allowed to reopen our doors to the public. The second is that battle of social distancing and the effect that has on audience numbers I've already described, but the effect it has on performances and what's on stage and what's in rehearsal room, that too has to be addressed. And I know Irish Theatre Institute, ITI, are working on that with companies who are producers and with venues who are producers. So there's a twin track approach here. You have Theatre Forum leading, I suppose, an audience driven or a response that's going to address the issue of audience. We have the ITI leading the way in terms of what can happen with performances and production. So a lot of challenges out there, and not that we should be overwhelmed by the grey cloud, but we should be aware of, and that, you know, this cloud will pass. Even the moon last night was quite bright. You know, there is light at the end of this tunnel. How long the tunnel is outside of our control. However, that's, I suppose, where we're at now. I was chatting to Trish Ford the other day, and I just said, you know, that I would be on here today, and I said, you know, what is the future? And she just thought, oh, this is a huge opportunity. This is the time now where, just as was mentioned earlier by Sorcha, you know, you don't, you know, you don't have to be thinking production. You think about development and creativity and sitting back and taking time and getting ready. And this, you know, we'll come back, but now is the time and space. But we just have to protect the people within that space, that they have the time and the resources to get through while we're through this, I suppose, a form of cultural cocooning. Historically, I was like Mary McCarthy yesterday in the Cork Examiner. She had a lovely quote. She said, pandemics historically have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. So, and as Roisin said at the start, you know, creative output now is going to take a new direction. Like this is the blank page. This is absolutely starting from the blank page. And Roisin rightly said that, you know, we venues, like, we have to like throw open our doors, open our minds. We are absolutely going to have to be receptive to people coming at us and challenging us and saying, you know, you've never done this, so why can't you do that? Or so I think it's a blank page. And like, I'm 28 years in this business, 3 of which were freelance, and I have to say were very difficult 3 years. I reinvented myself and worked in events and tourism related, hospitality kind of stuff. So I understand how difficult it is for people who work in the arts in a freelance capacity based in Galway, how challenging it is. For 25 years, I've been fortunate to work with one of several organizations over the years. So I've been on each side of the fence. So I'm talking to my colleagues in the group of NASC venues and the group of Nomad venues in Theatre Forum, and we're all acutely aware that if we are restricted or if we are unable to open up our doors in the way we used to for conventional style theatre with conventional style and scale audiences, we have to look at other ways. And, you know, one could say, okay, the virtual ways or whatever, but there are other ways. If our buildings are there and they're not busy, they should be busy, and the independent sector should be banging on the door, and the door will be, it's an open door. Like, we're looking at everything. So key words that Roisin used there: open and equitable, emerging artists, and the prioritization of local. You know, I think they're all key words that now move to the top of the agendas, to-do lists, ways of thinking and ways of working. So we have to be receptive, open, malleable, and because our normal, until there is a vaccine, normality is gone. Like, we're looking at 12 to 18 months before we're normal. And if we are to open the doors at 10 or 20 or 40%, there will need to be additional subvention, there'll have to be help, or there'll just have to be some other way of doing it. So basically, the theatres of yesterday are, I suppose, are the workspaces of tomorrow until we get through this. And then at the other end, one would hope that the Galway theatre sector is stronger than it was beforehand, because, as Marianne said earlier on, it was a sector under pressure. And I have to say, like, we've done a number of things the last few weeks which have lifted my heart. Like, we've done the Patron Donation Awards. There was a deadline for that last Friday with 16 applications, and I'm stunned. And they're all Galway City or County. I shouldn't be stunned, but just the caliber of the submissions. You know, I knew the caliber of the applicants, but just the caliber of some of the ideas and submissions are just for ideas and development and projects that could be developed and pushed forward to a stage of near development in the next 18 months. It's just like uplifting for me, because I've seen them. It's just like really positive. We're doing other things. We've worked at Little John, so the next 5 Thursdays he's going to do the cyber sessions, the studio and cyberspace. We've worked with James Reardon. We've readapted, reimagined with Jill and James. Reimagined he's artist in residency, and he's broadened that out because he can't work internationally. So we're going to work with more local and Irish-based artists. And we're looking at, you know, one project we're looking at, which again we'll need to engage and get the support involvement, like Dara, on a paid basis of local artists, is Bring It All Back Home, which is a project we just have dreamt up this week to do work with people living in nursing homes. So we have, like, we're here as the town hall black box studio. You know, we might, as Maria asked me there 2 weeks ago, Maria, I never wrote back to you. I didn't answer your answer on Facebook. I didn't answer your question on Facebook. 9 is what we can fit in the studio at 2 meters. We can get that to 20 at 1 meter because of the nature of the space. But the black box, you know, whereas the town hall might have problems, you know, the black box, you know, we're talking to Bob Rowe, there might be things we can do in a different way because of the flexibility of the space. So what's on our stages, we might have companies who are smaller in number, their blocking is different, their social distancing is there, the length of shows might be different, there might be no intervals. There's lots of things we'd be doing. We'd be taking your temperature on the way in, we wipe your hands on the way out and on the way in. There's so many things we're going to be doing that we've never done before, but I think this has been a savage 7 or 8 weeks. I think until the 10th of August is going to be tricky, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train, it's a light. And I just think we're all ears, so press that button.
That's brilliant, Fergal, thank you. And I think there's 2 things that are important to make note of there. And one of them is, and obviously we know this as well quite acutely, the pain of cancelling, of all of the things that you were excited to see and how invested everybody gets in the town hall programme, in the festival programme, in all of the work that has been cancelled throughout the summer. It is a very difficult process to be undoing all of the work that you have woven together over so much time. And that does take a while to kind of process through. But I think we are starting, as you said, to come to the point where people are coming up with these great ideas, and no more than Dara in Áras Éanna and yourselves working with Little John Nee, for example, you're really starting to see how we can keep ourselves alive in this disconnected phase, and also how we can start reimagining. And it's really great to hear you've always been huge supporters of ours in Galway Theatre Festival, but it's great to hear how open and encouraging you are to things that are maybe a little bit out of the box, which if we can do anything, I think we can come up with some creative ideas to still be able to share our work and share our ideas and our creativity in a slightly different way. So before I want to quickly thank all of our speakers, Roisin, Marianne, Dara and Fergal, for their insight and their contributions. There's a lot there that I think I will be thinking about for some time. If anybody in the audience would like to make a comment or ask a question, and now's your chance. We have a few minutes left. This is kind of to keep this under an hour. So if anybody would like to make a comment, you're more than welcome to do so. However, first, before we do that, I'm just going to call on Jane Hanbury, who is the project producer for Interaction, just to say a quick few words about the project.
Hi guys, can you hear me okay? Is the internet working? Sorry,
Yes,
this is
good, Jane. Thank you.
Perfect. This is the part of all of this. So I just wanted to give a little bit of a rundown about what Interaction is. It's a lab for artists, and it was developed in conjunction with Galway 2020 and Galway Theatre Festival. It was developed 5 years ago as part of the bid book. Obviously, a lot changed between then and now, and even more has changed amid the circumstances. But I just want to first commend the Interaction artists. We have 6 of them, and they've been so flexible, so amazing. You know, working away in this time must be really difficult to create piece of work, and they have just been in such high spirits. And I just wanted to get into them a little bit. It's a little marketing push. We've got 6 artists. Some are showcasing scratch projects, some are a little bit more developed, and we also have some treats from some international artists as well. But starting off, the amazing Phelim O'Halon, he has a sound piece exploring memory, sense and time, and participants will experience a version of the West of Ireland now from a perspective of a time traveller from 2060. John Rogers has an approximate, ever-changing 25-minute theatre piece about the mystery and joy of astronomy. He is the flagship project, and we have secured funding for a physical version, although we don't know right now when that will be. Marianne Cronin is using audio, and she has developed an audio piece that encourages participants to tune into the various rhythms of their body, and she is doing a workshop on wearable technologies. Tara J. Burke, she is creating an interactive piece using blogs, audio files, and social media profiles. Esther is has a show called Speak Like No One in Particular, which is about finding the spoken voice. She's a Hungarian theatre maker, and she also has a very exciting 2-day workshop, which is a writing workshop, and it's completely free. It's an all-day workshop for the 2 days, and I would highly recommend that. Porrick Conway, his project is surrounding Russian art and looking at contemporary drawing, design softwares, and gaming technology. He's also giving a workshop on the creation of his work. And then very excitingly, we have Swedish theatre makers Lundell and Zettel. They are launching their app based on their show Symphony of a Missing Room, Social Distancing 2020. And this work has been shown internationally for 10 years, and they've adapted it now to, they've adapted this artwork to an app which you can use with 2 people. So that app is now launched. It's if you go to the interactiongalway.com website, you can download it. You require 2 smartphones, although they can be an Apple or an Android. But it's a very, very exciting piece that uses projection lights and all that sort of thing. In terms of the project, we do hope to continue this digital program alongside GTF for years to come, and we do hope to put on physical versions of all of these works. Funding allowed. James Harold, are you there? But I just want to commend the artists for doing such an amazing job. Everything is free, so there are workshops, there's more talks, and all of the works and performances are free as well. So I would really, really appreciate, it's so funny in this time of when we're working on a slightly digital festival that everything has gone digital, but we would really, really appreciate if you did share out the Interaction Galway details, because it is just such a great opportunity for our artists, and we're just really happy that they can create work, get paid, and feel a good sense of security at this time. I'll hand you back over to Sorcha.
Thanks very much, Jane. We have a few questions. First of all, for anybody wanting to sign up to the interaction workshops or talks, you can get the information via the Interaction website, which is interactiongalway.com. And there's also, that'll give you links to Eventbrite, where you can sign up for all the individual projects. So we have a few questions. First of all, a question from Jeremy Sear Cook, who is asking Fergal what the best way to bang on the door is, i.e. get you via email or phone. And then he's also asking for the O'Donoghue Centre what the kind of seating situation would be in the ODC for with social distancing. So maybe if Fergal, you could answer that question first.
Can you mute me?
You're unmuted there, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've just typed in the address there, so anybody can get me at thd@galwaycity.ie. That's the best way to just talk to me first, and then we'll take it from there.
Brilliant, thank you very much, Fergal. And Marianne, I note that you wanted to speak, and also maybe you can answer Jeremy's question simultaneously.
Yeah, 16 is what we said, but we haven't taken into the balconies, and we also have a slightly more, but that's more for a lecture style, how much actual playing space that gives, and how close artists can be. And I suppose that was just one thing I wanted to come back in on. I was a week away from opening a show with third years, and it was Paul Mercier's Diarmuid and Grania. Had a cast of 24, and it was promenade all the way through the Donoghue Centre, and it was going to be brilliant. And we're now kind of in the process of reimagining it, if it can go ahead, but reimagining it and what that would look like. And I suppose, you know, as studio prices got more expensive in Dublin for visual artists, the visual art got smaller because perspective wise people couldn't stand as far back, and the work actually got smaller. And I'm wondering what way the creation of work will change. And I suppose just yes, digital is wonderful, and yes, it is really important, and I really look forward to the interaction, what's going to happen with interaction. But I also look forward to seeing how we can still remain that human contact that only theatre can give, how that can remain integral to the process of theatre, and how we can use technology to benefit that intimacy, or that feeling that only theatre can bring to a performance. And I suppose that is something that, you know, that stagecraft becomes hugely important. You know, finding the right background, you know, using what we have, and really the sound, that, you know, all the arts workers and all that goes to make up a show become more crucial than ever, where we have less star vehicles and more collective creativity.
Great, thanks very much, Marianne. So Michael Halloran, just for those who maybe aren't keeping an eye on the chat, has just mentioned that for any backstage staff to visit aist.ie/community to join the forums, as the membership for AIST is currently free, which is great. And I would also encourage everybody to keep an eye on ITI and Theatre Forum, who've both been mentioned, and also NCFA, the National Campaign for the Arts, who are doing Trojan work on a multidisciplinary level. And they are always looking for people to get involved. And they have had some really great conversations already, and are continuing to work on behalf of all art workers and artists across the sector. So, and Roisin IETM, thank you. So there's a load of really great and really vibrant and hardworking advocacy groups and resource groups who are working on our behalf. I think the more voices they have feeding the work that they do, the better. The louder we are, the harder it is to ignore us. So I think on that, I am going to call this to a close. Once again, I'd like to thank our four speakers for your insight. Thank you, Jane, for all the work you've done on interaction. Oh, James.
Sorcha, yeah, could I speak 2 points? First of all,
of course, James.
Yeah, just about the city arts grants. The problem is the government has advised the local authorities that unless they meet together in the same place, the meetings can be challenged as not being legal. So I'm ready, the Arts Office is ready to go anytime the City Council is ready to go with its recommendations to the City Council. And I do understand that the next City Council meeting will have the arts grants on the agenda. That probably will be in the month of May. It certainly wouldn't be much more than the month of May. That's the first thing. This is a big challenge for the city. It's a challenge for the city to take the arts as seriously as the arts deserve. Second thing is on the arts strategy. We were about halfway through the public and sectoral meetings when the rug was pulled from under us. But myself and Mary McAuliffe, our consultant, we are still working away. And anybody who wants to get in touch with me about the art strategy, just email me at jharold@galwaycity.ie. So we are working away in it. It's not paused. And the minute that we can get back to having real meetings, corporeal meetings, we will continue with the consultations, and we're going to hold them in the black box. So thanks very much for that, Fergal, which will give an opportunity, I think, more or less, for anybody who wants to come along to the sectoral meetings, of which theatre was the next day, actually, before the sectoral meetings, before the rug was pulled from under us. So we will continue with that. And this art strategy, which was always important, is now absolutely crucial, because it will reflect your world, your wishes, your desires, your plans for what Galway should be now that the reset button has been pushed. So it's incredibly vital. No one's voice will not be heard, and no one's voice will not find its way into the strategy. So rest assured, the Arts Office is working away, and I'm sure that when we call on the City Council, the councillors and the general officials to step up to the plate, we'll find out what they're made of, and I'm sure it'll be very interesting to see. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jane, and thank you for James, and thank you for that addition. I'm really looking forward to being involved in that strategy discussion. Strategy is something that may not seem very glossy, but I find quite exciting, because it really does carve the path for where we want to go. This has been recorded. We're going to be putting it on YouTube, and you'll be able to find that via our social media, etc. Thank you very much for everybody for attending, and for our speakers for your contributions. This has been really great. I'm going to cut us short now because the sun is shining for once, and it is worth grabbing the opportunity to enjoy it. And I wish you all a good weekend, and I wish you all a safe few weeks, and I hope to speak to you all very soon.